Wayata.
My lover's limbs are placed as ornaments. My lover's ornaments are eyes. House darkened by lanterns,
Pauriana.
moon darkened by heat. Darkness goes out with its voices.
Onareo. Naru.
With its voices.
E taura whakapaipai. Nā peka o ta kuipu. E whatu o ngā whakapaipai. Aururu ana te whare I te rau. Auri ana te marama I te makawe. Naranu te pūri. Naranu ana me ona reo.
My lover's breasts are marked with nails.
E rapi rapi te tui.
Our sea, a single garment is the rain.
Ko te ua.
House darkened by arrows,
Pūri ana.
moon darkened by song.
Pūri ana I te waiata.
Darkness goes out with its voices.
Naru ana te pūri.
With its voices.
Naru no ana me ona reo. Naru no ana me ona reo.
Her Excellency and Government Administrator, Right Honourable John Key, Prime Minister of New Zealand, the Honourable David Cunliffe, Leader of the Opposition, Ministers of the Crown, parliamentary colleagues, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A century ago, the storm clouds that have been gathering on the other side of the world reached New Zealand. The assassination of Archduke Ferdinand by Serbian forces had inflamed rivalry and dissonance across Europe. Germany, in support of its Austro-Hungarian ally, had declared war on France and Russia. Germany's invasion of Belgium, the first stage in an offensive against France, led to the British declaration of war on Germany on the 4th of August 1914. When word reached New Zealand, there was no question about how we would respond. We were a dominion of Great Britain. Great Britain was at war, therefore, so were we. Lord Liverpool's announcement, actually on the 5th of August, New Zealand time, sent New Zealanders flooding into the streets, holding impromptu rallies, singing patriotic songs and flying the Union Jack. Fundraising committees were set up and people donated everything from horses to guns. Sports events, concerts and street stalls were organised. There were marathon efforts in knitting and baking, all to raise funds for the Empire. New Zealanders rallied to the cause, and our expeditionary force left for foreign shores on the 16th of October. For the next 4 years, New Zealand was involved in a conflict on a scale the world had never seen. Over 100,000 brave New Zealanders served overseas. 18,000 lost their lives. Few people in New Zealand were lucky enough not to lose someone close to them. The repercussions have continued to be felt through the generations. We will now hear from Hewett Humphrey, and he will deliver the original British Declaration of War, which Lord Liverpool read on the steps of the parliamentary building to my left, with the then Prime Minister William Massey and the then Leader of the Opposition Joseph Ward at his side, and crowds of thousands of people gathered in these grounds before him. Hewett.
I have received a telegram today, and I'm going to read it very slowly indeed. I am commanded by His Majesty the King to read to you the following message. I desire to express to my people of the overseas dominions with what appreciation and pride I have received the messages from their respective governments during the last few days. These spontaneous assurances of their fullest support recall to me the generous, self-sacrificing help given by them in the past to the mother country. I shall be strengthened in the discharge of the great responsibilities which rest upon me by the confident belief that in this time of trial, my empire will stand united, calm, resolute, trusting in God. And it is signed George R.I. To that message, I have sent the following reply. New Zealand desires me to acknowledge Your Majesty's gracious message and to say that come good or ill, she, in company with the dominions and other dependencies of the Crown, is prepared to make any sacrifice to maintain her heritage and her birthright. fellow subjects, since I sent out that notice to you this morning, I have got another telegram. It is very short. I will read it to you. War has broken out with Germany.
I invite the Prime Minister of New Zealand, the Right Honourable John Key, to say a few words.
Today in New Zealand, we mark the centenary of the outbreak of the First World War. It is fitting that we have gathered here on the steps of Parliament, where the Declaration of War was read in 1914. The outbreak of war and the New Zealand government's offer to send an expeditionary force was a hugely significant moment in our nation's history. At the time, this news was met with excitement by many New Zealanders. Around 14,000 Kiwis had volunteered within 4 days. An initial deployment of 8,000 men grew to over 100,000 New Zealanders by 1919. For a nation of just over 1 million, this represented 10% of our total population who left our shores to serve overseas. New Zealand's commitment was not just limited to soldiers. Doctors and nurses, sailors and tunnellers all left our shores to serve New Zealanders overseas. Today we are joining countries across the world in marking this occasion. Our countrymen fought alongside Allied troops, and in particular, our Australian friends in difficult and deadly circumstances. It was through this shared adversity that many international relationships were forged, which endure to this day. For New Zealand, as for all the countries who took part in the First World War, the centenary is an opportunity to recall the part played by our forces, to honour the service and sacrifice of our countrymen, and to consider the impact of the war on our development as a nation and its relevance to us today. Over the next 5 years, commemorative events will take place across the country as New Zealanders choose how to mark the First World War. Events will take place across the world to mark the major milestones of the Great War 100 years on. New Zealand will take its place at these international events and stand side by side with our allies and former foes. The First World War changed how New Zealanders viewed ourselves, and indeed how other countries viewed us. It laid the foundations for the country that we have become today. And through the Centenary Program, future generations of New Zealanders will be able to learn about the significance of this period and understand for themselves what it means to be a New Zealander.
I now invite the Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable David Cunliffe, to address us.
On a bare, wind-swept hill, above a little South Canterbury village called Cave, stands a stark, lonely cenotaph. Cave is a tiny village of a few dozen souls, surrounded by the rolling downlands that slope up to the Hunter Hills. It is surrounded by farms. It is the place where I can first remember an Anzac dawn service. And what I remember is for all of the small size of that town, inscribed on the cenotaph were the names of dozens of local lads who lost their lives in the war to end wars, the so-called Great War. It is 100 years since the Great War, the war that broke and refashioned so many ideas of who we are, that underscored emerging concepts of nation and nationhood, that hurled humanity into modernity. 100 years on, it seems so distant, but the sheer weight of loss remains with us. Of the over 100,000 deployed, nearly 1 in 6 was killed and over 40,000 were wounded from a country with a population of just over 1 million. It is no exaggeration to say that the effects of this war rippled viscerally through our nation, through the empty farms, the damaged families, the silenced fathers and brothers, the stoically silent ones who returned, a rupture that changed us for good. It was loss, but it was also a fundamental and violent change to who we were and a part of who we are still and will be. It is ever present in the memorials of town after town, each holding the names of the loss, and in the dawn service. It is still with us in the way we think of ourselves as New Zealanders. Today is a day to commemorate the First World War. In doing so, we do not lose sight of the immense sacrifices made by tens of millions on all sides. Indeed, the concept of there being any other side than that of humanity seems alien so many decades. Should be a touchstone for how we conduct ourselves as individuals and as a nation.
I invite you all to please stand for the commemoration.
Save
E kore rātau, e koro heketia. Pēnei ia tātou, ua mahu e nei. E kore hoki rātau, e noi kore. Aha koa, pēhea ina āhuatana o te wā. I te hekena atu o te rā, tai noa, te arana mai i te ata. Ka mau mahara tonu tātou ki a rātou.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them.
Our guests can be seated. As many of you will have noticed, a field of remembrance has been established on the parliamentary lawn, and shortly the official party will proceed to that area to complete the placement of the final crosses. The Fields of Remembrance Trust has been established and is operating right throughout New Zealand to encourage our communities to create fields of remembrance with personalised white crosses to honour those in the community who served overseas during the First World War. I would like to conclude this part of the commemoration by quoting the words of King George V when he spoke at Flanders in 1922, dedicating a Commonwealth War Graves cemetery. And he said, "I have many times asked myself whether there can be more potent advocates of peace on earth than this massed multitude of silent witnesses to the desolation of war." Ladies and gentlemen, those words are still so apt today.